Hello and welcome back to the Distressed Princess. I'm Rhonda. In today's episode, I took some inspiration from some really pretty things I found at Target and Kirkland's, and I just thought that the prices were a little much for things we can make at home. So I'll show you how I made some sweet new decorations for a lot less money. So this caught my eye at Target. It is a large stone-looking candle from Hearth and Hand. Had a price tag of $24.99, and the design was so simple I thought maybe I could easily recreate it. And then I saw this very large candle from Kirkland's. It had frosted glass and a wooden pedestal type base. And this thing was $49.99. They had one even bigger for $99.99. Can you believe paying that much money for a candle? So I am going to take these candle ideas and see if I can whip up some candles of my own. The first thing I looked for to make these candles were the containers, and I scooped up this cereal bowl from Walmart. It's a Better Homes and Gardens cereal bowl, and it was only $3.56, and it was so similar to the candle at Target that you don't even have to do anything to it. Just fill it up with wax. And as for the Kirkland's candle, this is a little different than the Kirkland's one in the way that this is a more ornate bowl, which I happen to think is cuter. And it came from the Dollar Tree. Now, to make that wooden pedestal, you'll need to purchase one of these jars that they have out now at the Dollar General store. They're only $3, and you'll only be using the wooden lid part, so you can use the jar for something else, but this lid fits perfectly onto the bottom of this Dollar Tree bowl, which we'll be attaching with E6000. Also, I want to make sure that you know that this is a glass bowl. It's not plastic. You, of course, don't want to make a candle out of a plastic bowl. It would just melt. And to make this a frosted glass bowl, I'm using Rust-Oleum frosted glass spray paint. It's really simple to use. I was lucky that the weather was pretty, so I was able to take the bowl outside. I gave it one coat, although I think that two coats would maybe make it more frosty, and maybe I would like it better that way, but I only had time for the one coat. But it dries super quick, and I was able to bring it back in and then use my E6000 to go around the edge of that wooden lid, and then just set the bowl right down on top and let it set. And also, I only did the frosted glass on the outside of the bowl. Now for the wax part of the candles, I'm using 6 of the tall glass candles that you get at the Dollar Tree, and I've put them in a large pot of water to boil. The heat is on medium high, and it should take less than an hour to melt down all this wax. Go figure why. I don't know if it was my stove or something about these candles, but there was a couple that just didn't want to completely melt down, so I turned my pot around to find a better spot for them to heat up, and then they began melting. So you want to preserve the wicks out of these candles because you're going to use them in the candles that you're making. So I'm using a wooden dowel. I got them in a pack. I don't remember if they came from the Dollar Tree or Walmart, but they were really inexpensive no matter where they were from. And I like to use them to fish out my wicks and set them aside. Then you'll need to attach the wicks to your containers. I'll use 3 wicks for each candle, and I have to admittedly tell you, I've not made candles like this before ever, so I had to research a little bit to learn a little bit about candle making, but I am in no way an expert. And so having said that, the spacing of my wicks were all a little too close together. I sort of wish I would have spaced them further apart. I was afraid I would get them too close to the edges of the glass and they would turn the glass black. But, I erred on the other side then and got them too close. So Just pay attention to your spacing and you should come out with a better result than I did. And you saw I just used a dot of hot glue to attach those wicks, and now I'm using a wooden dowel to wrap the excess part of those wicks around so they don't sink down into the candle when I pour. I bought my candle oil at Michael's. It was $3 and some change, and they had a few to choose from, but I liked the idea of this citrus smell, so it's the one I chose. I read that you're supposed to add your fragrance oil when the wax has reached between 180 and 185 degrees, and this is so that you get better scent throw on your candle. And this is just my kitchen meat thermometer. I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not, but it sure did. The instructions on the back of the fragrance oil said 10 to 12 drops per candle that you're making. Now, this is where it got a little tricky for me because I'm using 3 of these candles to make one large candle and 3 of these candles to make another large candle. So I just wasn't really sure how much of this oil I should be using. So I figured 10 to 12 drops in each one, and then all of them combined. Maybe I should have a good scented candle. And I also read when making candles, you should stir in that fragrance oil for about 2 minutes to make sure it's all completely integrated and cooked up with the wax. Then you're ready to pour. Now put your oven mitts on because you know these jars are going to be super duper hot. And for the Target knockoff candle, I used 2.5 of the glass jars. And then for the frosted glass candle, I used 3.5 of the glass jars. And here they are, all dry after 24 hours. Make sure to put them in a place where they won't get knocked around or bumped or messed with. And then you can trim your wicks. And here you can see that my wicks did get a little too close together, but that's okay. You live and you learn, right? And so here they are, looking every bit as cute as the ones in the stores. The only thing that I would do different next time is pay more attention to the placing of my wicks, and I do believe I would add a little bit more fragrance because I can smell them, but I want them to be just a little bit stronger. And one more thing I should tell you about these candles is because they are large and because they have 3 wicks, they throw a lot of heat, so be careful where you place them in your house. Next up is another Target Pretty, and it's gorgeous. I love it, but in no way, shape, or form should it cost $10 when all it is a pretty little glass container and some pretty little flowers. You can usually find pretty little old glass jars at the junk stores, the thrift stores, antique stores, Goodwill. This one only cost me 50 cents. Right now at the Dollar Tree, you can get these really cute cherry blossoms, and they have the little brown sticks just like the ones at Target, and so that's what I'm going to use for my flowers. Now this is optional, but if you want this to be a permanent arrangement, you can use clear school glue, which I also got from the Dollar Tree, and you can put just a little bit down in the bottom of that jar, and so when you put your flowers down inside, they will stay forever. It does take the school glue some days, I do say days, to dry, but it will eventually dry. And I would much rather pay $1.50 as opposed to $10 for something like this. The next thing I found was this beautiful picture from Target. It was another Hearth and Hand product for $19.99. To make something similar, you'll need to find a pitcher, of course. I chose this glass pitcher for the shape of it. You don't want a potbelly pitcher or anything that's going to blossom out at the bottom because you're going to paint lines on it or draw lines on it. So you need the pitcher to be as straight up and down as possible. And I found this one at the junk store for $6. I taped off the bottom part of the picture so that I can get the dual colors like the one at Target. So the top most part of the picture is going to be that tannish cream color, and then the bottom part that I'm taping off is going to be some form of terracotta. I would have liked to have been able to remove the design that was originally on the picture, but it was the kind of design that you could have took a jackhammer to it and the glass would be broken, but the design would still be there. So I had no way of removing mine, but if you can use fingernail polish remover to remove any designs that might be on your thrift store picture, go ahead and do so. I thought that the best way to get the kind of texture that was on the original picture would be to use chalk paint. And there's good to this and there's not so good to this. The chalk paint will tend to get clumpy when you're painting it on glass. So being that I had to use two coats of this mineral chalk paint, it's the Waverly brand in the color mineral, it did want to clump up on me. I have seen some spray paint chalk paint at a store that we have around here. It's a big box store called Menards, and I need to invest in some of that and see how it works because being able to spray paint chalk paint would be fabulous. You'll get an overall better coverage, I think, and less clumping. To make this look more like the color of the one in Target, I am using some white spray paint just to very, very lightly dust a little on to give it a little speckled, textured appearance. And then I removed the painter's tape from the bottom so I could begin working on the color that goes there. Okay, to get a good color, I used a hodgepodge. I started out with the terracotta, which I added to that bowl of the Waverly mineral that I already had used on the picture. And I thought maybe that would give me the right color, but it wasn't totally to my liking. So then I added some of this light mocha. And that didn't really do it for me either. So then I added some Waverly chalk paint in truffle. And that one I thought was all right. So I began painting the bottom of the pitcher. Ordinarily, I probably would have tried to use tape to get a crisp, clean, straight line, but I was afraid that if I put tape over that mineral color paint, that it would just peel back up with the tape, as I've had happen many times before. So I did the best I could and just free-handed that along the bottom. The picture in Target had a much smaller part that was this darker color, but I wanted there to be more of it showing, so I made mine bigger. For the lines, after everything's dry, of course, I'm using a navy blue color Sharpie marker, and I'm going to use a ruler to try to get these lines drawn on as straight as possible. Now, I looked back at the footage of my Target picture and I saw that the lines were done in kind of groupings. So you have one line, two lines, three lines. So, and they're all kind of pinstriped on there. They're pretty thin. And so that's the pattern that I went with. So I drew from my bottom darker color strip all the way up to the top, and I started with the one line, then I gave a space, and now I'm going to draw two thin lines. Now you'll see that I started out doing this with the picture standing up and holding the ruler up against the picture, and that seemed to be working out okay so far. But you'll see in just a little bit I go off the rails some, and I didn't get a straight line drawn on, which I'll show you how to fix because I did come up with an idea to fix it later. Um, but you'll also see another technique I use where I decide to lay the picture down, which is what I recommend because laying the picture down stabilizes more when you're drawing, and yeah, you just get a better outcome. So after I slept on it and thought about it, I realized maybe I could remove that Sharpie marker with some rubbing alcohol and draw them back on again in the parts, the places where I have my oopsies. And it worked pretty good. I would say though, if you catch your mistake soon enough and get that alcohol to it fast, it will come off easier than when I had to try to take it off the next day. But even with all her little mistakes, I think she turned out beautiful. And I don't know if I would go to the trouble to do this again, to tell you the truth. If I really wanted that picture, I'd probably just lay out the $20 and buy it because this one gave me some fits. But I'm happy to say that I made it and I think she's pretty. Now let's take a look back at all of our Look for Less dupes. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you try any of these ideas, I would love to see them. You can find me over on Instagram where you can message me and send me pictures of the things that you've tried. And if you want to see more DIY fun, click the link that I've provided for you right here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.